Good afternoon, YouTube. And today we're talking about the top 5 reasons on why I think you should not buy a Rolex watch. Now remember, these are my opinions and I am entitled to them, as are you. And I do appreciate if you drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know your thoughts on this topic. So Rolex watches is a world-known brand name in the watch, not just community, but across the board. I think if anybody, you were to ask like a Family Feud question, name 3 watch brands. Rolex is on the tip of everybody's tongue. And granted, that's pretty amazing, right? One cannot argue about their importance in the watch world, but ultimately remember, these things just tell time. So why should you not buy one? So these are my opinions, of course. Number one, a big one for me, and it's not because I can't afford one, it's because I just don't see the value in the cost. Rolex watches are extremely expensive, and this video is about Rolex, but really this can kind of be used to I guess in my opinion, top 5 reasons why you shouldn't buy any luxury brand for that matter, right? But today we're picking on Rolex today, right? So again, the cost. The cost of Rolex watches are significantly more expensive than thousands of other brands out there. And that price might not be justifiable for a lot of people based on what they make, and a lot of times based on just the fact that they don't see the value in what the brand is providing. Let's face it, there was a time in which Swiss-made and handmade really meant something, and a lot of brands like Rolex, in my opinion, are still kind of living off that idea that there's like this idea that like modern machining doesn't exist. People still want to focus on the fact that, oh, handmade, Swiss made, that means something. There was a time in history when we didn't have the modern machining we have nowadays. So if you had somebody hand making something who cared about what they were doing, and let's face it, I think it's safe to say that there's good and bad employees with every business, right? But I would say that Rolex definitely protects their name and protects their status more than anything else, right? And so I think that the people working there, the people creating these watches, do take pride in what they're doing, right? But the thing is that modern machining can produce something nowadays with the precision that human beings have a very difficult time doing, right? And human beings get tired. And the argument could also be made that machines do break. However, usually they just break, and I don't know, I guess the argument can be made on both sides, but I trust the expertise and precision of something that's a modern machine than I do a person working 8 hours a day to produce something, right? And that's why most of the things made nowadays are made by machines, because they just do it better, they don't get tired, and they do it with a level of precision that's very difficult for human hands to kind of duplicate. And that's why I feel like brands like Rolex are kind of living off the past, right? Again, not saying if you were to compare Rolex 30 years ago to a Timex watch, or whatever brand you choose back in the day, absolutely, I think there was an insane quality difference, but not so much anymore. And so cost, you have to really ask yourself, what exactly are you paying for? Are you paying for the quality? Because if you're paying for the quality, I feel like you can get the quality for a lot cheaper, right? So cost may not be something that most people are willing to justify. Now, on the flip side of that, Rolex is an extremely popular brand. I think they're probably one of the most popular brands on earth, so people are justifying paying the money for them, right? And I'm not going to get into the whole investment thing of it, because nothing is guaranteed, just keep that in mind. But cost is one reason why most folks should not buy one, right? And I'll kind of circle back to that. Maintenance, right? So you hear it all the time. Rolex watches are to be maintained. And I hear comments all the time on this channel saying that a Rolex watch can be an heirloom. It can be passed down forever, generation after generation. But yet they seem to just forget that that can be done with anything, right? There is this misconception that Rolex movements are so far advanced that it just rivals brands like TMI and Seiko and the brands Invicta's using, and many other micro brands out there. It's just not the case. These movements are relatively simple machines. They're not overly complex. Now, there are watch companies who make insanely complex movements, but most of the watches that you're going to see from brands like Rolex, and many other brands out there, are simple mechanical movements. There hasn't been a lot of reinventing the wheel here. Improvements have been made, but in all honesty, the most important portion of a watch movement that dictates how long it lasts is the addition of synthetic jewels or rubies. Most watch automatic movements have those. So this idea that this is something that's going to last you forever and an affordable watch is ridiculous. Now, on the flip side to that, let's talk about maintenance. Most folks who spend $10,000+ on a watch are going to maintain their watch because they want to maintain their level of investment. They don't want to let something go. It's just like your house. Most people who spend a lot of money on things do want them to last forever. So if you go buying a house and you spend $300, $400, $500 million on a house, for the most part, people do, but for the most part, people are going to address a leaky roof. They're going to address the paint needing to be, or the siding needing to be repainted. They're going to maintain it. And like anything in life, if you maintain it, generally it will last a lot longer, in some cases forever. So if you're willing to spend $500 to $1,000 every 5 to 10 years, and again, that's depending on the product, depending on the manufacturer recommendation, but that's what I've read on Google, the average, 3 to 10 years, $500, $800 on standard maintenance of a Rolex watch. If you're willing to do that with an Invicta that costs $98 with a Seiko NH35 movement, then the odds of that Seiko NH35 movement lasting forever are just as good as the Rolex, right? So again, how much are you putting into a watch? Are you going to spend $500 to $800 to have a $99 watch maintained? Probably not. The idea of maintaining kind of goes out the window when you get something affordable, right? You could just replace it. So again, maintenance, do you want to spend that much money and have to maintain something that you may want to sell someday, and you want to make sure nothing happens to it because it is a big ticket item, right? So to me, that's never something that I'm going to want to have to deal with, right? So the next thing, number 3, is perception and status, right? Some people view Rolex watches as a symbol of wealth, which is which is, in my opinion, the main reason people buy them, which can lead to unwanted attentions and assumptions. Now, these assumptions, again, about your financial situation, these assumptions generally are viewed as positive because a lot of people will buy a Rolex watch for the perception of others. And I've been saying this for years. They don't necessarily believe that the watch is going to last them forever, or they brainwash themselves into thinking that, or they got sold by some hotshot Rolex salesman, right? They're looking for the perception of others. And I feel like that's the big reason why people buy them. It's so that when you're wearing that watch and people see it, you want the perception that you're successful, that you have money. And that is quite incredible that a brand can do that and sell products based on that perception. And it's interesting that grown men can actually put aside critical thinking and buy something based on that. Now, I'm not saying that there's not very successful people out there wearing Rolex watches, and I'm not saying that if I was, Powerball winner, I'm not saying I wouldn't own one, but as a regular working man, I just don't see the reward I get from owning something like that, right? It just doesn't do anything for me, right? And these are, again, that's personal opinion. Buy what ultimately makes you happy. It's most important. This is reasons why I wouldn't buy one, right? Really should have titled the video 5 reasons why I wouldn't buy a Rolex watch, and you can kind of take that how it is, but hey, whatever. Unedited raw. So again, I can understand that idea that if you're wearing a watch and people recognize, because it is a recognizable brand, that it's a Rolex, they're going to view you a certain way. However, that kind of perception goes out the window when you go out to jump in your car if you're leaving the bar, or you pull up to your house. If people are going to perceive you as being successful and having money, and I don't even think success can be weighed in many different ways, but it's really about having money. If you want to go and showboat and have a Rolex watch on your wrist for the perception of others that they think you're successful, financially successful, and have money, but you're going out getting in and I'm not knocking any car here because I'm an affordable car guy, you're going to hop in your Honda Accord or Toyota Camry or Kia Soul or whatever car you may be jumping into, or 1992 Mercedes-Benz. To me, that kind of... When I view that, I see somebody that doesn't really prioritize things very well, right? To go spend 15 grand, let's just say, pick a number, on a Rolex Submariner, and then go jump in a car that is, 20, 30 years old, to me, I don't know. Again, it's not my money, but to me, I would never do that. I would never spend the money on something like that. I'd much rather buy, and my cars are older, so I'm not knocking people older cars, right? I like what I like. I enjoy the customization process of specific cars that kind of speak to me, and I never get sick of them. I enjoy them just as much as the day I got them. I'd much rather have another car that I'd like to add to my collection. So again, everybody's got different things that they prefer spending money on. That brings me more enjoyment than having this possibility of a perception that people think I have money with a Rolex watch on my wrist. So again, now the fourth one, trends and fashion. Now again, while Rolex has a timeless appeal, and it does, That's not to say that other brands do not. And trends in fashion can shift, right? They absolutely do. Look at Jinko jeans, right? Now, some people still wear those, right? But I look at my styles over the years, and my style went from baggy clothes to more fitted clothes, right? So trends change, style change. Ultimately, you should buy a watch because, and even a Rolex, because you really specifically want it. It has nothing to do with reliability, brand perception, the perception of others, just strictly that you want it is really all that really matters. Me, I would never spend the money on something like that. And again, if you're not buying it for yourself, things do go out of style. Now, I don't really think that a Rolex watch will go out of style because it is a simple, basic, timeless design. So again, I think most people are pretty safe about that. But again, if you buy it because you absolutely love it, it won't go out of style. My car analogy is perfect. 2000 Honda Accord, I like it now just as much as the day I got it, right? So, all right. So in the fifth one, functionality. Now, for those who prioritize functionality over brand prestige, this is where many watches are. There's many watches out there that offer advanced features like the smart technology, and I'm not really a smartwatch guy, but durability, G-Shock, specific functions, solar, whether they're suited for diving or aviation. There's lots of different watches out there. And there's a lot of watches you can buy that'll give you all those features. Because remember, at the end of the day, a watch is to tell time. And a lot of folks will say, oh, a Rolex is super accurate. Well, okay, well, so is a $99 Casio G-Shock, right? And if you look at modern quartz watches versus an automatic, if your goal is accuracy, you don't buy an automatic watch. You would buy the quartz Casio G-Shock or even a $5 digital quartz watch. And so, again, you can get all those. You can buy a Citizen that's solar, super accurate with radio tower time syncing, and all these different features for far less than what you're going to pay. So my point is, if you want functionality, you sure as heck don't have to buy a Rolex in order to get that and to achieve that. It can be done for thousands and thousands of dollars less. Accurate time telling, right? Water resistance. High quality materials, 316 stainless steel, right? If you're looking for a solid gold watch, well, absolutely. Then you're probably going to be pushed more towards a luxury brand like a Rolex. Totally get that. But if you're not, if you're just looking at good quality stainless steel, 316 is all you need. There's other stainless steels out there, Damascus and things like that, that offer, I've heard people say superior qualities. You know what? I have watches that are made of cheap stainless steel. And at the end of the day, they're still working well. They still give a element of corrosion resistance. So again, 316 to me is really all you need. There are other types of stainless that I kind of value for more of their cool factor, but 316 is really all you need. Sapphire crystals, I mean, all these different features can be had for far, far less. So one has to ask themselves, am I buying this watch for functionality? Am I buying it for fashion trends? Am I buying it for the perception and status of others? Am I buying it because I want to shell out money for maintenance? And, am I buying it because it costs a lot of money? So all these negative reasons that I have chosen here because I personally wouldn't buy a Rolex does not mean you shouldn't buy a Rolex, right? And if ultimately you can go through these 5 reasons with me and say, hey, you know what? I'm not worried about the perception of others. Cost doesn't matter to me, right? Ultimately, at the end of the day, there's only one reason why you should buy a Rolex. And that's simply because you want it. With no rationale, no reasoning, that should be the end of that discussion, right? And I think that a lot of people who buy these brands try to rationalize why they had to spend that much money with some of the ones that I mentioned. At the end of the day, it's really not true. The main reason on why you should buy a Rolex watch is because ultimately you want it. Heritage, yeah, the brand has heritage, but there's brands, so does Timex, right? So does Invicta. Invicta has insane heritage. It may be a completely different brand nowadays than it was, 20, 30 years ago, but that doesn't eliminate the heritage. It's like saying, well, my house is from the 1800s. I had it re-sided, and so it's now a modern house and gutted. That still doesn't make it not a cool historic house, right? And so that can be said with many different brands out there. Again, that's not really a reason to buy specifically a Rolex watch because you can buy many, many brands that have heritage, right? That are far, far less. So ultimately, at the end of the day, buy it because you want it, buy it because your heart tells you you're going to get a lot of enjoyment wearing it, and not for the what I call the watch snobs delusional rationale on why you have to spend that much money on a watch. And if you choose not to spend that much money on a watch, I can attest to the quality of hundreds of brands that I've reviewed on this channel. I have over 450 watches in my collection by many different brands, and at the end of the day, they're all pretty nice. So thanks for watching. Do subscribe to the channel. Let me know your thoughts and have a fantastic day.